Good evening, everyone. I'll call the Brandon Select Board to order, and we're going to convene as the Board of Sewer Commissioners first. The agenda was posted. Is there any action on the agenda as it was posted?
Motion to approve.
Second motion for Mr. Wyman and a second for Mr. Markowski to adopt the agenda. Are there any changes to be made to it? All in favor of adopting the agenda as posted for the Board of Sewer Commissioners November 22nd, 2021, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. It's unanimous. Is there a motion on item 2, approval of the minutes of June 28th and July 12th?
I'll make that.
Mr. Coolidge moves to approve. Mr. Wyman seconds. Any errors or omissions in those minutes? None heard. All in favor of approval of those minutes of the previous meeting, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. It's unanimous. How about item 3, a purchase order? Mr. Atherton, you want to introduce that?
Sure. This is for pump replacement and controls at the Brookdale Trailer Park. As you know, through the years we've had multiple issues with that system, so it's time to put new ones in. And Steve has actually broke it down with everything that needs to be done here. He did reach out to 4 companies. We only had 1 response. As you know, the park owner is actually responsible for 25% of this cost as well. So
That's what I was going to ask. So like in relation to the agreement that you have with them, this is the total figure and what the park owner would reimburse the town?
yep, we've done it with them on a couple other things already, so they're fine.
Okay. What's the pleasure of the board on replacing the grinder pumps and controls at the Brookdale station?
Motion to approve the replacement.
I'll second.
Motion for Mr. Wyman and a second for Mr. Markowski. Any discussion?
Thank you for putting the work in to get a quote.
Yeah, Steve and Dave, thank you for doing the background work.
This was Steve.
All Steve. Thank you, Steve.
You're welcome.
Thank you for the way that you present it. It's always very easy to understand. If no further discussion, ready to vote? All in favor of approval of the purchase order, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. It's unanimous. Item 4.
Both to adjourn.
Mr. Coolidge moves to adjourn.
Second.
There's a second. It's not debatable. It's 7:02. All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. We're adjourned. Okay, perfect. Now call the Brandon Select Board to order for November 22nd, 2021.
Sorry.
Someone's there. Yep. We've got someone participating by Zoom, which is great. The agenda was posted. What's the pleasure of the board on the agenda?
Motion to approve.
Mr. Coolidge moves to approve.
Yeah, second.
Mr. Wyman seconds. Any changes to be made to the agenda? No changes heard. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say no. Any abstentions? It's unanimous. The ayes have it. Item 2, approval of the minutes of the previous board meeting, November 8th.
Motion to approve.
Mr. Wyman moves to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Markowski. Any errors or omissions in the minutes of November 8th as they were submitted? None heard. All in favor of approval of the minutes, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. The ayes have it. It's unanimous. Item 3, the town manager's report. Mr. Atherton, please.
That's my report from November 8th through November 19th. I've been working with Dubois & King on closeout documents for segment 6. This includes confirming quantities, substantial completion certification, balancing change order, and final pay rec if needed. I had a Zoom meeting with Brandon Fire District 2 and Otter Creek Engineering to discuss the possible merger with Brandon Fire District 1. This had been brought up as a possible ARPA-funded project. Wanted to have a discussion about other possible options for Brandon Fire District 2, and should be meeting with Jeff Cohen again for further discussion on that. Staff's been working on budget numbers in preparation of the upcoming budget meetings. I'm hoping to have a new draft version of the proposed budget sent to the committee by the 23rd, which is tomorrow. I attended the Portland Regional Planning Commission meeting on November 16th. The hot topic was about new funding for the phosphorus TMDL mitigation project within the Lake Champlain basins. There are multiple funding sources for this work already. However, I will be inquiring about the new program to see if it's beneficial for us. Attended a joint regional transportation council meeting with Rutland and Addison County RPCs to discuss the urgency of rebuilding the Route 22A corridor. I know it doesn't go through our town, but it is a regional committee, so. This has been a constant topic at regional planning, especially after the last fatal car crash. V-Trans was present for the meeting. Hopefully they fast-tracked the project to make the highway safer. The Park and Ride project behind the soon-to-be Dunkin' Donuts has been completed. The lights were activated on November 15th, and the contractor has agreed to return in the spring to reapply grass seed. The bioswale project in the parking area behind Cafe Provence has also been completed. This was another 100% grant-funded project through the Rutland Natural Resources Conservation District. We had to replace some slate roof shingles on both the town office and the town hall last week due to the high winds from the storm on November 12th. And Sean and I have been drafting a bid spec for the new tandem truck that we will be sending out soon. I will be presenting the bid proposals to the select board once we receive them. And once it's approved, we will order a new truck, which they're looking at about 18 months out. So, and one thing I wanted to add, we got another local option tax payment in of $68,706.86. So that's up from the last one. Brandon Rec. Brandon Rec is partnering with the Barn Hopper to offer a showing of the Nutcracker on December 5th. It's 12 to 3 with cookies, cocoa, and a ballerina from the Vermont Ballet Company. Brandon's Winter Wonderland will open on December 1st. This is the brainchild of Dennis Reisenweaver and inspired by Austrian Christmas markets. The two concept sales 8x8 sheds that were built by Pete Breen and Jeff Wallen are being placed in Kennedy Park by our Public Works Department. Karen Trey of Estabrook Craft Fame has found folks to rent the spaces for these December days. Other weekend events along with Chambers Moonlight Madness will pave the way to make Brandon the Christmas village that people visit for holiday shopping and fun. Town Hall Winter program is coming along nicely. Brandon Idol, Wildlife Encounters, and Cabaret will be back with some new concerts offerings. Stay tuned.
Thank you, Mr. Atherton. Thank you, Mr. Moore. It's nice to see a couple of completed projects reported. Thank you for all of the work that you do to keep those moving all the time. It's very rare that we get a report that says, something is still pending. You're very efficient at keeping the projects moving along. We appreciate it very much. Questions or comments from the board for Mr. Atherton regarding the report? Tim?
A couple little things. So the 1% money we get quarterly, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I was just confirming that. And the other one, I'm more curious as just a habit than expecting a positive response, but the tandem truck, I'm curious if we can even make an attempt to get somebody to give us a quote when you spec it out on an electrical.
Sure.
I mean, easy enough to find out that we can't, but I mean, I'd be curious if we could find a bit. Thanks.
Others?
What was the figure you had on the quarterly?
68.
706.86.
What's that, zero?
68,706.86.
Up about 6,000 from the last one.
So this is suspected to be July, August, September? Yeah. Other questions from the board or comment? Nope. How about from the public? Members of the public, either, Tim, could you let someone else read? So members of the public here in the room or members of the public and the press attending by Zoom, any questions or comments for the town manager regarding his report? Okay, if not, we'll move along. Item 4 is public comment and participation. This is the designated opportunity for items that you don't see on the agenda that you'd like the board to consider. Any public comment to come before the board tonight, items that you don't see being discussed later on the agenda? Yes, Mr. Guy.
Yeah, so just today we met with Solar Fest people they're still continuing to show interest in our town to locate. And what was interesting that came out of it is we discovered today that they actually have interest in trying to develop a community solar project, kind of like Bristol did. And I just want to give a heads up to the board that I'm hoping next time to give a more complete suggestion about things I've been learning about solar that might be helpful for the board to know.
So they're thinking about a community solar project in Brandon?
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. Other public comment? Anything else? Anyone attending by Zoom? So there's always public comment available on any agenda item, but we'll go along with the other agenda items then in the meantime. There's a resolution to consider for the BLSG Insect Control District. I see we have our commissioner. Mr. Commissioner. Bugman. Mr. Rosenberg is here, our representative to the BLSG board. So, Dave, you want to introduce it, or Mr. Rosenberg, or Wayne, you want to introduce this, or? We got a letter.
Yeah, you got the letter, and we just want you to approve. If you are okay with it, we just want you to approve it and sign off on it.
Right. So the way that the agreement is currently written, the select boards need to sign off on changes, right? So these were changes that we were made aware of at previous meetings. They've now been, I guess, brought to all the select boards. And the board of the insect control district is now kind of bringing back a solid proposal for us to sign off on.
Right.
Yeah. What's the pleasure of the board?
Make motion to sign off on it.
We'll second that.
Motion for Mr. Wyman and a second for Mr. Coolidge. Any discussion? Again, we discussed this at a previous meeting, so this is not news for the most part, but I guess the big news will be we'll start calling it the Otter Creek Watershed Insect Control District.
Soon.
Soon, yeah. Any further discussion? All in favor of adopting the proposed amendment as it was sent to us by the Board of Trustees of the Insect Control District, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. That's unanimous. Great. Thank you for all the work, Wayne. I know that it's like death by committee trying to get that kind of thing done, and you guys have done it with a minimal amount of back and forth, so thank you. How about item 6, the grand list, errors and omissions? Would you want to frame this up for us?
Sure. So, and Nemrick brings this or presents this to us every year, like grand list values and fair market value stuff. And this is the annual one that the board would usually approve it, and it sits in front of the grand list. So, as you can see, if you flip on to page 2, the majority of it is a parcel that they used for a trial parcel that was inactivated. So, it's really only about a $70,000 change.
What's the pleasure of the board on these amendments to the grand list, errors and omissions? I will move that we approve them.
Second it.
Second for Mr. Wyman. Any discussions? So is that test parcel, is that literally just something they do like to try out and make sure the calculations are working right when they add tax rates in and generate bills or something? You know, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That's too bad.
At least it was just that.
Yeah, yeah.
In the world.
A lot of current use
We
changes.
couldn't send them a tax bill, so.
Right. Any discussion? All in favor of approval of the assessor's list of errors and omissions, adjustments to the grand list 2021, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no. It's unanimous. Okay, item 7, mask mandate discussion. Hesitant to introduce this because it's very fresh news, but and I wrote down the figures that Dave told me,
And they still have them or something.
and I shuffled my papers or something. Anyway, so the House and the Senate passed the bill that would allow towns, actually select boards of towns, right, to implement a local mask mandate for their towns And there's certain requirements, oh, there it was, right? It passed 90 to 41 in the House and 17 to 10 in the Senate. So Brandon's select board would be the group responsible for considering whether Brandon should have an indoor mask mandate. And it would be reconsidered every month through April. I think April was the sunset of it.
Yeah.
So,
Would you like me to just read this little bit, so?
what have we got now?
So, allows towns to pass their own mask mandate for 30-day increments until the end of April, and schools are exempt. The first round of mask mandates, however, would last for 45 days. So that's really what the gist of it is.
Okay. So what's the pleasure of the board? We can discuss, under the rules we work at, we can discuss without a motion, and then do a motion at the end, because we're on small boards. Any discussion?
Yeah, I've been kind of intentionally going around to ask people about what they thought about this. I've gone to several businesses and just kind of polling people. And it seems that the pandemic's as bad as it's been right now with numbers, and there's no arguing that. It's also true that we have vaccines to choose from, and we know about masks, and for the most part, people are responsible. And I've been solidly on the fence on this, because I tend to believe personal choice is preferable to a government mandate. But it struck me this afternoon that part of the job of a public body, us, a governing board, is actually to be responsible for guiding public policy, and in the case of COVID, with it being as bad as it is, I'm now of the mind to suggest a mandate. And I think the reason that I'm even willing to suggest it is because the people that I talked to, even though they weren't thrilled about it, said they would do it if necessary. And some people who I think would feel comforted by this would see it as a positive statement that we are paying attention to the data. And because it's going to be renewed in 6 weeks, if things get better in 6 weeks, I would be the first one to suggest that we relax our mandate. But it's hard to argue that this is the worst it's been in the state of Vermont. So,
Mr. Carr?
Can you explain what a mandate is?
Requirement, I guess.
Is there any kind of enforcement to it at all?
This is a personal view, is that I think we would have a very hard time enforcing it because we don't have any, are we literally going to have the police officers?
Mask police.
Yeah, you know what I mean? I don't see this as enforceable myself.
What was the situation during the initial part of the pandemic with the governors? Was it because it was a state of emergency that it really?
I would say that was different because it was a state of emergency, and I actually spoke some this morning with Bush Shaw about this. I think he was on his way up to the session kind of thing and called from the car. And he said that at that time, it was the case that the state police were considered to be available for enforcement of various components of the state of emergency. We wouldn't have that.
Okay.
Do you have, that was a good question, do you have any insight from the business community?
Not particularly. I know that many of the businesses wear them themselves. I know we do in our shop because we get exposed to all of you folks, whereas when you're coming in my shop, that's just your one interaction. So we have more concerns about a wide variety of people coming through, dealing with us at the register. I know I was really pretty happy not having a cold last year, so I've been wearing mine in the grocery store and places like that. But I haven't seen. I've seen the folks in the liquor store. The Red Clover, wearing them when they had an event the other night. I think there's no standard thing that's going on right now in businesses.
So, a mandate, I guess, would make it standardized. But I think what I've been experiencing at local businesses and so forth is that individual businesses, if they're choosing that they want their customers to be masked for the safety of themselves or their other customers or their staff, they're just putting a very, direct, kind of easy to understand sign at the door. We were in a local business on Saturday, and they had a sign outside that said, masks required regardless of vaccination status, please. And we put them on, and the other folks inside had them on. And there are other businesses, I had to take my kitten to the vet for a little checkup, because she's new to us, and you call from the car, and they tell you what their policy is. So I think that the businesses have, over the course of time, developed their own policies or their own safety protocols, and they've also developed ways to communicate those to people who would be patronizing their businesses. And I feel like it's been pretty successful. I do like that in those kinds of ways. I felt like it's been a cooperative kind of thing, not really a coercive kind of thing. So, so since I'm talking, so like my personal view on it is that I think that people are adults, and this pandemic's been with us long enough that I think people are aware of the benefits and the risks and so forth of all different kinds of behaviors. And I think at this point, just because something is a good idea doesn't necessarily mean it ought to be mandatory. And just because something is a bad idea doesn't mean it should be outlawed. That's where I'm coming at this from. I also don't think a mandate would necessarily change the behavior of people who are themselves not inclined to mask themselves. I don't think that necessarily the desired result of people who are advocating for this would actually come true. I think it might in fact dig some people in a little bit harder. Other thoughts?
I guess I'm just gonna echo what you just said. I think it's the businesses, if they want you to mask, I think that they are gonna put their signage out, and I'm not really in favor of mandate at this point in time, I guess, as far as, I guess I would agree with what you said about the whole thing.
Others, board members, public? Yes, sir.
Just to give you guys some guidance, the rec department is, because we do the vast majority of our programming in the schools, we've adopted a mask mandate for our participants, especially the youth that are just starting to become eligible for vaccinations. So just for the youth and our rec program, we'll be doing masks.
And just to reiterate what Dave said earlier, we're not talking about school situations or anything like that, which are separately directed in Vermont. Yeah.
My other thought was if we wanted to put something for town property or when the town hall or something rented, to put something like that in, maybe that might be a possibility, but I'm mixed on that also.
I think there's another perspective too that might be helpful in this conversation, that sometimes a mandate from a governing authority takes the pressure off of businesses that might feel uncomfortable about telling their customers. They can rely on us taking the heat rather than them. I mean, it's kind of like it would have been nice if the state had done that to take the pressure off of us.
Yeah, I think that, the pandemic's changed a few times, since we've been all living through it. And I feel like at the very beginning, when no one had a vaccine, it made all the sense in the world. And, I think everybody kind of, or for the most part, people seem to think that, okay, it's a reasonable protection. And I think Dr. Levine, within the Public Health Commissioner, within the last couple of weeks, has said that, he feels that Vermont's high rate of transmission right now might be a little bit because we were so successful in getting everybody a vaccine and so few of us actually got COVID. So there's a little bit of a school of thought, I think, even from the professionals that, you know, at this point, we're vaccinated. If we get COVID, maybe it's going to be much milder for most of us. I mean, if you're in an at-risk group because of your health or your age or all these other conditions, you have a different equation that you've got to think about in terms of your masking. But for others of us, like maybe we just need to get COVID and get through it because this is going to be with us like the flu is with us, or
Like a pandemic.
like it's, yeah.
Yeah, I think because I haven't heard a majority yet, I'll make a motion and that we have a mask mandate, so we can at least go on the record as either wanting one or not wanting one.
Yeah, we'll have a vote. So is there a second on that?
That's
I'll
fine.
ask
Tell me
one.
something as well.
Yeah, I'll ask one more time. Is there a second? I don't hear a second, so it fails for lack of a second.
Sure.
Is there a motion in the other direction to either take no action or to actively declare that we're not going to have a mask mandate at this time? Or whatever you want to vote on.
Make a motion to take no action.
Motion to take no action. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second. Any discussion on taking no action? Any folks on Zoom want to chime in with any comment? Or any folks in the room?
I agree, no action.
Thank you, Jan. That was Jan Coolidge. Any others?
Seth, I just wanted to,
Yes.
just let you know, like, the town clerk's office has been requiring folks to wear masks for the last month again, so.
And she has a little sign at the door, and she has a little box of masks if you don't have them with you. Do you feel like upstairs, you're comfortable with the interaction that you have with the public in the current way, or are you thinking about doing it as a management kind of decision?
So, we don't really have a lot of interaction upstairs, and we're far enough apart, it was up there that we don't, when folks come in with masks on, people come into my office, I can put one on if they have one on. Sort of common courtesy. if they-
Yeah. Yeah, I think that, you know, we do have a lot of tradition and custom of just generally being considerate of one another. And I think that if we are with people who feel more comfortable with masks on, I think that, you know, considerate folks would consider putting a mask on in that situation if it didn't compromise their own, you know, breathing or whatever.
So there are still some businesses that the state is requiring that you wear masks, like my
Like
wife's
the
business.
close contact kind of
Young
businesses.
Village Spa, they still have to wear masks all day, so, hope folks can understand that too, that there are definitely some places where they're still required to wear masks.
And we should, I think, maybe take the opportunity to recognize the fact that there are folks in those kinds of lines of work and that we rely on them, and that when we go to restaurants and we see servers and kitchen help wearing masks, and when we interact with the police and we see that they're out with masks, and the first responders, and the number of people for whom this has become part of how they go about doing their job in a professional way. And it's not without cost to them, and it's not without inconvenience to them, and I think that we all owe them some appreciation and a bigger tip and all that kind of stuff when we are helped and served by shopkeepers who are masked, and all the people who are interacting with the public in their jobs.
Seth,
Further, yeah, Mr. Carter.
that's why I asked initially that whole mandate thing, because we've been through it long enough that the people are gonna wear the masks, they're gonna wear the masks, they're aware of the new numbers. I've seen a huge increase in the last 3 to 4 weeks. So I don't think that a mandate's gonna do anything for this. The ones that aren't gonna wear the mask, aren't gonna wear the mask, they haven't worn the mask. So just move forward and we'll get through it.
Thank you for that. That's good comment. Any other comment before we call the vote? Okay, all in favor of taking no action at this time on a mask mandate, and Brandon, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no.
No?
Okay, 4 to 1. Oh, and Charlene, I think this is a good time. In the minutes, when we have a vote that's not unanimous, could you indicate some names?
Yeah.
And I'm not doing that specifically,
Oh, I understand.
but I just think sometimes we do want to look back, and
Sure.
there's a little technical reason too, is sometimes, you know, if we have that when we can look back, then you know who can and who cannot call for reconsideration of something that we've passed. Okay, thank you for that very cordial discussion. How about number 8, the bills to pay?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Coolidge moves to approve the warrant. Sorry, it's $1 million, Coolidge, are you sure? I would do it.
School.
It's mostly the school and the fire district, so.
Okay, so motion for Mr. Coolidge and a second for Mr. Wyman. Are there any questions on any of the bills that were listed in the warrant? It was kind of a long warrant. No questions?
Sorry, who's seconded?
Mr. Wyman. Ready to vote then? All in favor of approval of the warrant as it was presented, $1,280,212 and a penny, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no. That passes. So the board has on the agenda 2 executive sessions and then adjournment. So before we do that, does anybody have any announcements for the community or things for the good of the community that they want to share? Good news reports, those kinds of
That
things.
Christmas tree looks real nice in the Central Park.
Yes, and thank you to everybody who helped decorate the downtown with the pretty lights and all that kind of festive stuff.
And the town hall as well, when it gets lit up.
Yes.
The town hall will be lit up on Sunday, after Thanksgiving, this coming Sunday at 4 o'clock.
And you have the chambers having their contest for who's got the
All
best
the decoration
decorations for
contest,
different
yeah.
kinds of categories, right? And that's
It's December
shortly
19th.
before Christmas, right? The Sunday before Christmas.
Yeah, There'll be a flyer going to every 05733 zip code, 05745 and Whitington, with a list of events coming up through the month.
Very good.
Whose idea was it for the green lights on the fountain over there? Was that DBA, do you know, or was it your idea? Or?
DBA.
That,
That looks really cool. Need a star on top.
My wife said the same thing.
Don't climb. Insurance.
Anything else? If not, okay, we'll have the board at recess. Thank you all for being here. 7:32,
so
and then we'll do the executive session.